When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie here at Black Star Network. Each and every week, we are bringing you content that is tried and true so that each of us can discover how to live a balanced life. I know you tell me every week it's easier said than done, and of course it is. And that's why we bring you guests and resources that are allowing you to really figure out how to put things in your toolkit that will allow you to not only survive, but to thrive in the times in which we're living. Today, we are celebrating breast cancer and breast cancer survivors. There is so much for us to learn and to know as people are encountering diagnosis, our individuals are living through having gotten a diagnosis, and those who are on the other side of survival. We're here today and are going to be joined by some very special guests. I'm excited to have our contributors today, Dr. Tierney, our Level Up Life Coach, Pastor J.T. Johnson, pastor of the Word Church, as well as a special guest, Dr. Hampton, who is our medical professional for today. I'm excited that she is with us. But in addition to that, we'll also be hearing from two families who are breast cancer survivor families. Yes, one person may get the diagnosis, but it is a family that is involved. We'll be joined today by the Nolans and the Sabaris. Hello, everybody. Welcome in.
Hi, thank you for having us.
I'm so glad that you all are here. I'm bringing all of you guys in because I want people to see your faces, because oftentimes we hear names, we follow each other on social media, but oftentimes we don't really put a name to a face, to a cause, or to a platform. And so as we're talking and engaging today as it relates to breast cancer, these are the individuals that will share their stories, that will warm your hearts, that will allow you to find hope in the midst of your story. At the top of this time we have together, I want to just have a one-on-one for a moment with Dr. Hampton. I think it's important that as we go into this conversation and dialogue, that we not only understand who she is and the work that she does, but that we all get a baseline for what it means to understand breast health. Hey, Dr. Hampton, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Can you share with us a little bit about who you are, what you do? And I know we're talking about Breast Cancer Month, but people get diagnoses all the time throughout the year. So share with us.
So I'm Dr. Regina Hampton. I am a breast surgeon. I'm located in Prince George's County. In addition to that, I am the co-founder of Breast Care for Washington, which is a nonprofit organization that's dedicated to providing mammograms for women, regardless of their insurance status. And then I'm also the co-founder of Cherry Blossom Intimates, and we are a store that's focused on helping survivors to look good after their diagnosis and after their breast surgery.
Now, the nonprofit work that you do, as well as in your medical profession, can you talk to us a little bit about why it's important that we understand breast health? We do a lot around awareness, but oftentimes people are just, oh, I'm going to go do a walk or I'm going to do a run, but they really don't hear that much about the survivor's story and the role and the work of the medical practitioner in this space. What is the function of a doctor in your particular area of service?
So for me, being a breast surgeon and a breast health expert, I'm usually the first person that people see, whether they have an abnormal mammogram or when they're diagnosed with breast cancer. So when they come in with me, then I'm the one who helps them to get in with a medical oncologist or radiation oncologist and really helps to build the team. I think why it's so important and why I'm really passionate about what I do is because when we look at the stats for African American women, while we get breast cancer less than our white counterparts, our survival rates are a lot higher. Our mortality rates, our death rates are a lot higher. And really, I misspoke because our survival rates should be higher when we look at that, but that's not the case. It's upwards of 40% more deaths in Black women when compared to white women. And so to me, it's a matter of urgency. We have a lot of work to do. And I think it starts with a program like this where we really can take the fear We can take the mystery out because we see in our communities that that's what prevents a lot of women from moving forward, even when they have a diagnosis, and even from getting the appropriate screening with mammograms.
Screening, diagnoses, and coming to terms with all of that can oftentimes be overwhelming. In the area of mental health, as it relates to a breast cancer diagnosis, how do you help people balance? And because the fear is a thing that just literally creeps in the moment that you hear it. How do you help people balance what comes next? What do you say to them?
For me, I tell folks, first of all, just take a deep breath. let's just take a deep breath because we're going to get through this together. And I think it really helps when they know that I can see them, I hear them, I can understand that they've probably been to other providers who did not hear or listen to what their symptoms were, or really understand that as a Black woman, she's younger than what we typically see in white women. And so it really just starts there with just that deep breath. And then for me, it's often more than just the diagnosis. I realize she's coming with, a handbag of multiple things: her family, her children, her work. She may be a caregiver. So I think it's treating the whole woman, because I tell women I can treat the cancer. That part I'm not worried about. But how do we get you through this so that you're whole, not only physically, but mentally as well?
You bring up several really important parts, which is why we have Dr. Tierney here and Pastor JT, because it does take a village. And oftentimes there's that intersectionality between the medical care provider, the life coach, and the pastoral care. Dr. Tierney and Pastor JT, as we are in this first block, each of you has played a role in the lives of people. And medically, people hear a diagnosis. They're trying to figure out what their next steps are. And I would say, I would call my pastor first. So Pastor JT, I'm coming to you because, there is that space where we say, oh God, why is this happening to me? And then we go through all of these scenarios in our head. Did I do something wrong? Did I eat the wrong foods? Was I in the wrong space? How do you help people navigate how God sees what they're going through to get them to understanding that we're all in this together?
Right. And we are all in this together. I believe that we start off with the exact thing that Dr. Hampton said. Take a deep breath, calm down, and in that moment, remember who you are and whose you are. It was even just real quick came to mind about the story when Lazarus was sick and word got to Jesus. And he said, okay, in a sense, calm down. This sickness is not going to be unto death. Well, we know how the story went, because when he got there, it was a little different than what he said. And it even moved him to tears. But when Mary and Martha came to him and said that, if you would have been here, things would have been different, it pushed him to move, and it pushed him to call Lazarus by name, and Lazarus came out. And I believe that in that moment, as we are dealing with the diagnosis, it's probably the worst day of anyone's life. No one wakes up in the morning and expects that this day I'm going to hear words that in this instance could be end immortality. But I believe that if you have a belief, as we are Christians, or if you believe in a higher power, that's when you tap into that connection. And in that moment, when Mary and Martha went to Jesus, we see prayer as getting on our knees, clasping our hands, and closing our eyes. But prayer is just a divine communication with your creator. So in that moment, they prayed and he answered that prayer. And so I believe that as a pastor, that would be my first suggestion. Calm down, remember who you are, remember whose you are. And when you remember whose you are, you know that he's just a phone call away. And now you have something to take to him. We have a name. And so we're going to go to him, reference the name, and then allow him to take us through the journey.
You're absolutely correct when it comes to going through our journey, because sometimes our journeys look different. And, people say all the time, oh, I need a pastor. Oh, I need a coach. Oh, perhaps I need a therapist. And to be quite honest, the lives that we're living today, we need everybody. Dr. Tierney, in your work as a life coach, and, you consistently are engaging individuals and you meet them at various stages of life. What is the role of the coach in the life of a person who is experiencing a diagnosis, especially one that was unexpected?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, my role is to be a safe space. That's for all of my clients. Diagnosis, stress, just need someone to talk to. My job is to be a safe space for my client, to be a safe space for her. Something that Dr. Hampton said that I really want to make sure everyone heard was that she used the word team. That is one of her first steps, is that she starts to assemble the team. And that's something that I tell all of my clients, regardless of where we are in life, we all need a team. Who are those people that can be on our team so that when we're walking this thing out, when walking this journey out, we're walking our healing out, these are the people that are walking right along with us. If we think about, again, kind of going to something that Pastor JT said, if we go to the story of the man on the mat, he had 4 people that would carry him on the mat, lift him on the roof, dug a hole in the roof, and lowered him down before Jesus. So we all have to make sure that we have somebody holding our mat. Who are those people that are holding your mat? So I love what you said, Dr. Jacquie, about having the therapist, the medical professionals, your pastor, assemble your team. Something that I often see is that when we get bad news or my clients encounter something huge in their life that they're not sure how to grapple with, sometimes what we'll do is isolate ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's the worst thing that we can do in situations like this. What we should do is lean in, assemble our team, let that be our coach, our pastors, our medical team, a combination of all of these people, and let us hold space for you, okay? Because that's really our number one job.
Holding space. When we come back after the break, we'll talk about that for a moment. I'm going to introduce you to a couple of our families who are going to share their stories as it relates to not only hearing their diagnosis, their kinds of cancer, but how does family play a part? Honestly, faith and family go hand in hand when we're back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance.
We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can tell, everyone needs to be assembled when we get the call, when we understand what we're going to be facing. It allows us to have an opportunity to really settle in our soul and in our spirit to what do our next steps look like. I want to talk to the Nolan family today because I'm so intrigued by their story, Catrice's kind of cancer, and the way that her husband and the family just rallied around what they heard. Welcome in, Nolans. How are you guys?
We're doing good, Dr. Jacquie. It's good to be here.
It's good to see you both face to face and to literally talk to you today, because oftentimes our families only hear one person got a diagnosis. Catrice has cancer. Oh, my wife has cancer. But we never talk about the party, the family that's engaged and involved. And I love to hear, Catrice, about your journey, and Keith, about your role as the husband in all of this and how you approached and navigated and supported. So however either of you would like to start.
I'll start with just some of the symptoms that I had. As you said, we face an uncommon journey because of the type of cancer I was diagnosed with. So back in January 2013, was playing with our young son, he was 3 at the time, just crawling around on the floor. And I looked down at my chest, and I thought that one breast looked slightly larger than the other. I looked at my husband. I asked him if he noticed a difference, and he didn't. Fast forward that evening, I stood in front of our bathroom mirror, and I knew for certain that there was a difference. And I asked him then, and he said yes, he completely saw a difference. The next morning, I called my family physician. She was not in the office that day. They asked if I wanted to wait to be seen, and I said, no, this is quite odd. I need to be seen that same day. Went into the doctor's office, and they performed a breast examination. He said he did notice that it was swelling. It seemed warm to the touch, and had asked if I had nursed, and I had 2 years prior. And he said, well, that's quite odd. Typically, these symptoms we think as mastitis. And so he gave me an antibiotic, but he said, just to be sure, I'd like to send you in for a mammogram. And I said, absolutely, send me in. So at the age of 37, I went in for my very first mammogram, and it came back inconclusive. He said, you know what, even if you have that mammogram and there's nothing detected, I think you ought to be monitored by a breast surgeon. So 2 weeks later, I'd finished the antibiotics. I was trying to button my shirt, and my breast had swollen so much I couldn't button my shirt. And that's when I knew something was gravely wrong. I called that breast surgeon's office. They said that they didn't have availability for 2 months. And I told them that I don't think I had 2 months. My breast had swollen in 2 weeks' time to the point that I couldn't button my shirt. So I requested a different doctor. They got me in that same week. I had some difficulties getting to see the doctor. Finally, after some back and forth, the doctor walks into the office manager's office and said, taking one look at me, she thought I had inflammatory breast cancer. I had never heard of that before.
So is that considered a rare form of cancer?
Absolutely. Between 1% to 5% of those diagnosed with breast cancer will have this rare form and aggressive form of breast cancer that can't be detected until it's stage 3.
Keith.
Yeah, that was a very interesting time for me. I think for one, I didn't even know that there were multiple types or kinds of breast cancer. I did know and understand that there had been a lot of forward movement, if you will, towards advancing treatments of breast cancer. So I didn't think much about it. And so my first thought was, okay, well, what's next steps, right? How do we attack it and how do we eradicate it? And then I think the next day after her test was performed, they came back and said, yes, in fact, you do have this rare form of cancer. And so we researched it, and the initial read was not one that was positive for me. The first thought that I had was, I'm going to watch my wife die. And then my next thought was, as a husband, one of the things that you promise her father or her parents is that you're going to provide for her and take care of her. And at this point, there was nothing that I could absolutely do. And so I felt like I was going to be failing my immediate family in taking care of my wife. But fortunately, to go back to Pastor, what Pastor was saying is I was open that night, and I prayed hard. And I listened, and God spoke to me. And he told me that your wife was going to be okay. She needed that push to get her through. She had to have a why to take her on the journey that she's currently on. So I got up, I went to her side, and I told her, tonight we cry, tomorrow we attack. And that's where we left it. And then next day, we hit the doctor hard, and within a couple of days, she had begun treatment.
I'd like to invite in Dr. Hampton, because you both alluded to persistence. Dr. Hampton, why is it important for patients who feel that something is not quite right with them to persist and continue to push forward to be seen?
Well, because as I tell patients, you know your body better than I do. And so I think it's important for us to really listen to the patient and really take what they say into strong consideration. I know I've even had some patients who've had to talk me into moving forward whether there's a something we don't feel, something we don't see on the mammogram. But I've learned over the years to really listen to that patient and really to take their thoughts into consideration. And then there have been times when I've been surprised by some of the findings just because we moved further. So I think it's important that women and men just find a provider who's going to hear you and listen to you. And we know that that can be a challenge, especially in our community.
Speaking of that challenge, when a husband is involved, as Keith is involved, does that strike you as odd? Is it the woman that normally comes alone, or are more men engaged in the process as the family goes through this breast cancer diagnosis?
I'm always just in awe of men. And I don't think we give them enough credit, because there often is behind that strong woman who's going through that diagnosis, there's an equally strong man who's holding her up. And we find it's a little challenging for the men, because men are fixers and they want to be able to take this away. But I always want men to know that sometimes just that hug and knowing that you've got their back is just so important. You don't have to always fix it. You can let me and my colleagues do the fixing, but to be there, I've just been in awe at men and how they stand by their women. So bravo to the men.
Thank you for sharing those words of encouragement. Now, Catrice, you and both Keith have moved on to doing some things related to not only breast cancer awareness, but you're an author in that space and a coach in that space. How has your journey from breast cancer, being a survivor, evolved into helping others?
So that journey evolved, because having been diagnosed with something so rare and aggressive, I noticed that I seemed to be more the exception and not the norm, and that I spoke so openly about what I was going through. And because I spoke about what I was going through during the diagnosis, the help that I needed seemed to come my way. That didn't seem to be the case for a number of the women who I eventually were finding out were going through a diagnosis. And some of them were being so silent about what they were going through. And some of those were unfortunately not getting access to the care that they needed. And so because of that, that journey led me to found an organization called findcancerhelp.com, also write a book, just because I felt like there's so many amazing resources available, but so many people just didn't know how to find them, didn't know how they could help their own individual cases. And so I've had so much support from my husband in a lot of these endeavors.
Absolutely. Keith, are you involved in this journey in assisting husbands and spouses who also are on that side?
I will be. We've started a blog. We haven't formally released any of the information as of yet, but yes, absolutely. I want the men to know that it's okay, and to go along with what the doctor said is it's okay. We don't have to fix everything. We know we want to, and that was part of what I tried to do. I actually prayed to God to give it to me, to let me run with that mantle. But I knew that was something that was not going to happen, and it was something that was needed for her to do what she was called here to do. So in lieu of the book that my wife wrote, we're again going to be continuing with the blog and some other things, and potentially having some group exercises to have those discussions, to let people know, hey, it's okay to sit back in the background and not necessarily try to be the one to fix the problem, but just work it out and assist where we can.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So work it out and assist where you can. Before we go into our next blocks, can either of you share some tips on what that looks like? Because that's another phrase that's easier said than done, because sometimes people don't know how to take their hands off. And oftentimes they're engaged too much. And then sometimes they are totally like, I don't want anything to do with this. And then they're totally absent. What does that look like in real time?
I think one thing looks like is having family meetings. After diagnosis, our children were so young at the time, and we were trying to figure out how we're going to tell them. We just finally said, you know what, let's just sit down, have a family meeting, from the 3-year-old all the way up to the 11 or 12-year-old. And, Keith led the discussion and just started sharing with the kids what was going on.
Yeah, it's, I think the worst thing that you can possibly do is keep it away from the ones that you love. You have to give them the knowledge and the insight and let them know what's going on and what's happening. Our kids, 2 of them really didn't understand it. Our oldest child did. But you also have to understand with sharing that information, there could potentially be some fallout from that. And our oldest did have some issues that surfaced from that. But fortunately enough, having assembled a strong team, we were able to get her some of the help that she needed to be able to express herself and get some of her fears, if you will, out of her system so that she could continue to grow and advance.
Thank you all for sharing your story. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk to another family. I am so excited to bring to each of you this dynamic couple that will come to talk to us when we're back after the break.
Put 10 in here?
10, and you don't come out till you die. And you eat him, you hoop 10.
Oh my God. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And this month, we are talking about on today's show, breast cancer, survivor stories, awareness, and engagement. It takes all of us to be a part of this community when it comes to someone receiving a diagnosis. Our next family, who I'm so excited. Many of you may have seen Shandia and her husband, Wally, in a variety of places, whether it was Essence, whether it was on the news, just the work that they do. Shandia is the founder of an organization entitled Bold and Breastless. Welcome, Shandia and Wally. How are you?
Thank you. Fine. Thank you for having us.
Oh, absolutely. I thoroughly enjoy talking to you each and every time. And then now to meet you, Wally, it's just an honor for me to share your story with all of our viewers to learn about not only, Shandia, your kind of cancer, the decision that you made regarding your cancer and your organization. So I'm going to let the two of you just jump right in, and Shandia, share your story. And then Wally, we of course want to hear, you're a military man from what I recall. And I'm so excited that people will be able to hear your story and how you came alongside. I'll turn it over to you two.
Well, first of all, giving honor to Christ, who is the reason that I'm here. I got to say thank you. Because without him and him being in my life, I wouldn't be here. And then I got to say thank you to my fine husband, who God is the head of my life, but my husband is the head of our home. So I'm thankful to him, thankful to you, Dr. Jacquie, and everybody else that's on the show. 11 years ago, I scared the hell out of cancer. It took both of my breasts and left. I had no symptoms, no signs, nothing to suggest breast cancer. One day I was getting dressed, getting ready to go to the Dollar Tree. And because I believe in God, I know it's the Holy Spirit, something said you need to get a mammogram. And that next day I had an appointment scheduled with my GYN for my annual exam. And I told her, I said, you're going to think I'm crazy. I said, something said I need to get a mammogram. And so she asked me if I did a self-breast exam. I told her I did. I didn't feel anything. She did one as well on me, and she didn't feel anything. So she put me in for my screening mammogram. I got my 3D screening mammogram, and then the next week I received a letter in the mail that said that there were some calcifications and changes in tissue, and that my breasts were densed. So I made the phone call, and the nurse told me that they were going to bring me back in for my diagnostic mammogram. So I went back for my diagnostic mammogram, and then after that, received a call that I needed to come in to get a biopsy. When got the biopsy, the radiologist said, I can't look at you and tell you that you don't have breast cancer. And so they did the biopsy, and it was breast cancer. I had ductal carcinoma in situ in my right breast. In my right breast, I also had an area that was lobular carcinoma in situ, so LCIS and DCIS. And in my right breast, it was all stage 0. In my left breast, I had DCIS, the ductal carcinoma in situ. I had stages 0 and stage 1A. Thankfully, I did not have to do chemo or radiation. The type of breast cancer I had was ER and PR positive, estrogen and progesterone positive. My Oncotype DX score was a 7. And so that's the reason I didn't have to do the chemo and or the radiation. I had to take Femara, letrozole for 5 years. I had an amazing surgical oncologist. And we still remain very close to this day. She did my surgery. Now, I did not have to get a bilateral mastectomy, but because of the area where the cancer was in my left breast, which was near a blood vessel, I had to have that breast removed. But I decided, after praying and talking with my husband, because as much as I love him, and look at me, baby, now, as much as I love you, and as much as he loves me, I needed him to know that, the cancer did not affect my self-esteem. And I wasn't going to have him affect my self-esteem had he said he needed to have some breasts, because if he needed the breasts and not me, then what we have isn't real. So, I made the decision, chop them off. I wasn't going through anything that I didn't have to go through. And I say that to say, and that was my decision, because we all have our own journey. But for me, the most important thing for me was to get the cancer out of me, not to get any more breasts. I don't want nothing to look like a breast. And so I had the bilateral mastectomy, did not do reconstruction, do not wear prosthesis. I'm bold and breastless. I'm happy. I'm thankful, highly favored, and just so thankful for a second chance to be able to be a blessing to other people, because my journey wasn't just about me going through breast cancer. There's a purpose in my journey, and that's to give others hope and to inspire others and to let them know that regardless of any cancer diagnosis or whatever they go through in life, there is hope, because we're going to have pain in this world. We're going to make plans to do things in this world, and things are not going to always go the way we want them to go. But if we put our faith and our trust in God, we will make it. My grandparents raised me in a little small country town in Timmonsville, South Carolina. And my grandma used to always say, baby, whenever you go through something in life, you got to remember the number 3, because Jesus wept. And on the 3rd day, he rose. So whenever you go through something in life, you got to remember the number 3. You give yourself 3 days and you get up and you do what you got to do. And that's what I did.
Now, that's a powerful story and a testimony. And I'm watching Wally's face because, you're a strong man, sir, military and all. And I know that you had been accustomed to certain parts of Shondia's life. And that conversation, How did that resonate with you? Because I can tell by her passion that you understood where she was coming from when she said she was not going to do any reconstructive surgery. But as a man talking to other men, how do you help them reconcile not only the cancer diagnosis, but not having reconstructive surgery?
Well, the way I look at it is I did not marry her breast. I married Shonda. So, and in the Bible, it say, when you find a wife, you find it's a good thing.
Yes, Lord.
So I found my good thing. I found my great thing. So my advice to all men, just be supportive. You know, sometimes you got to take yourself out of the picture and just let them run the show. Just listen. Listening, communication is the most important thing. And we always talk about building that team. We built that team, and we always say it's just us. We are all we have. So it's my wife and I and our 2 kids. We sat down, we talked, and we did so much research. So the fear that we had was the fear of the unknown. We never had to deal with cancer. We didn't know anything about cancer at the time, but we did so much research that I felt I was back in college. We were college sweethearts. I was a math tutor. She failed anyway, but not my fault.
You were a distraction, sir. You were a distraction.
Yeah, but we did so much research trying to figure out what is it that we're dealing with. And we talked to reputable people. And that was the most thing. And, you know, when you build that team, you got to make sure within that team, there are positive people. Just keep all the negative away from you, because that's not what you need at that time. So just building that team and just listening is the key.
And I want to say something. When he said in the Bible, it says, when you findeth a wife, you findeth a good thing. You know, I laughed, not to be arrogant or to give myself any kudos, because it, like I said, this isn't about me. It's about what we can do for others. But I was so happy and I laughed because I can see my husband growing spiritually. And that to me is a blessing. Like, you know, we're both still climbing Jacob's ladder. Now, we're not perfect. We're not saints. You know, as much as I love Christ, and Pastor, I know you're on this show with us, but I have a problem with cussing, you know, because we all, you know, as Romans 3:23 says, we all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So I know I have some things that I got to work on, but for him to see me grow, for me to see him grow, it's just like a hallelujah moment for me.
Those things are very important. I want to invite Dr. Tierney and Dr. Hampton in, because there are a couple of things, and I know we're going to go to our next block, so I'll probably be picking this up in our 4th block. But the stages that you mentioned sounded like, and this is why I need Dr. Hampton in, because at the stage in which you caught your cancer, it allowed you to not have chemotherapy. And I want her to share for a moment why those stages are important. But then also with Dr. Tierney, just watching this couple, you're a level up coach and you see growth and development. So I'm going to start with Dr. Hampton.
So in this day and age, we're really in a take care, very personalized care. And so not everybody gets surgery, not everybody gets radiation, not everybody gets chemotherapy. We really look at each individual person and each individual cancer and tailor a treatment that meets the need. So I think that often scares a lot of people, because they all think, I've got breast cancer, I have to have my breast removed, I have to have chemotherapy, I have to have all this aggressive treatment. And that's just not the case. You know, thankfully, when you have a very early diagnosis, you have more options on the table. And it's not a one size fits all.
Absolutely. Dr. Tierney, watching families go through things together, how does that fit into the dynamic of leveling up your life and watching people take on processes that they've never taken on before?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, when I tell you I've just being able to watch you, Shonda and Wally, I was just sitting here going, yes, yes, and yes, being able to see how you guys join together as a team, how you're sitting here now laughing and enjoying each other. That's the beauty of what happens on the other side of it. I often tell my clients that not every problem means our peril. Sometimes problems come, they come to shape us. They come to make us better. They come to make us stronger. And basically what you said, you're able to see each other grow in your walk with Christ, in your internal strength, in your maturity level. And so making sure that as we're going through the different things that we encounter on this journey, that we keep that right perspective, that we keep that positive focus and we say, okay, what can I learn from this? How is this making me better? What else how else can I grow as a person? Keeping those positive people on the team that's looking for that silver lining in the midst of everything that's happening, knowing that all things work together for our good, that this will be part of our story. This will be part of the testimony, and so that's a really, really important piece to hold on to as you're moving through life, as you're going to that next level. There will be challenges. There will be things that come against us. Maybe it's not breast cancer for you. Maybe it's a financial, something. Maybe it's another health ailment. Maybe it's some family dynamic, but there will be something that comes along. But remembering that those are the things that really are the king makers and the queen makers. Those are the things that really make a marriage really come together and bond together. So if you look at it from that aspect, there's nothing that you can't tackle. With God's help, there's nothing you can't do.
I love that. And thank you for the segue, because when we come back after the break, we're going to talk about those vows for a moment. Yep, I said it. There's something in those vows that's called in sickness and in health when we're back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can tell, our hearts have been warmed by the stories that we've heard today. It gives us an opportunity to figure out how to balance what it is we're facing. And oftentimes, when it happens in relationship, in married as a couple, there's this part of our vows that says in sickness and in health. And I want to talk to Pastor JT about that for a moment, because I have seen some couples not make it when we got to the in sickness and in health part. Pastor JT, we say these vows and we mean them at the time that we're standing in front of you or someone like you at the altar. And then all of a sudden, life. Talk to us about the role of staying with your vows in sickness and in health.
Wow. Staying with your vows in sickness and in health. Kind of going back to our previous segment, man, when that brother started quoting the King James Bible, I know that the Lord had spoke to him. He say, when a man findeth a wife, he findeth a good thing. I think a lot of times, especially in today's day and time, we have a lot of people that put more effort and more time in the wedding, and they're not prepared for the marriage. Because we spend time figuring out what color we're going to wear. We spend time on venue, who's going to be the caterer, who's going to be the photographer. And then we say, I do, but then we're not prepared for when life says, I bet you won't. And so then when we're hit, I always reference this statement, and it was from Mike Tyson, and it may not necessarily be one that you would think would be fitting in this setting. But Mike Tyson said, everybody is good. Everybody has a plan. Everybody is winning until they get punched in the mouth. And life has a very eerie way of doing this when you least expect it, and even more so to couples. But I believe that the word, Dr. Jacquie, that we stand on that ensures that you are honoring your vows in sickness and in health, for richer, for poor, is commitment. When I am committed to my mate, I understand that every day won't be a sunshiny day. And matter of fact, in life, if every day was a day of sunshine and we had no rain, we all would be dead because there would be no vegetation. The seeds that we plant wouldn't grow. There would be nothing that would help us harvest the crops that we need to sustain ourselves because we need the rain. Matter of fact, I made a point when I was preaching recently, and I talked about the valley and how so many of us, we run past our valley moments because everybody is on a quest to get to the mountain. But have you ever noticed that on the mountaintop, it's nothing but a rock? You can't plant nothing. No vegetation grows there. The valley is that place of moisture. The valley is that place where seeds are planted and you're able to grow. Yes, the valley may be full of struggle. It may be full of hurt. It may be full of pain. But the valley is what develops the character in you. The valley is what develops and pulls out of you things that you didn't even know that you had, that prepares you for your next mountain. Because what we don't understand is we live in between mountain to mountain. And that valley prepares us for the next mountain, because it was a valley that you went through that you may have experienced in your 20s. But if you didn't go through that valley, you would not have been prepared for the valley that was coming up when you got to your 30s. And so as we are seeing today, many people are looking at relationships like we look at appliances at Walmart. You can use the appliance. You can air fryer, you can use the microwave, you can do whatever you want to. And when you get tired of it, you can take it back. And that's how a lot of people are viewing relationships. But I promise you, those that can weather the storm and that are committed to those vows, committed to that person that's laying next to them, and more so committed to the God that brother, you know that God is going to get you through and he's going to see you through. So not to be super biblical and not to get too preachy in this moment, but if the body, the church, is the bride, it makes sense as to the reason why couples are fought and they are attacked the way that they are, is because in this world, a successful couple is a mirror image of the relationship that God has with his church. So if we can just weather it through, continue to push through, continue to pray through and pray for each other, and don't find a way to pray on each other, even in the midst of that storm, there's going to be a silver lining, because if we don't ever have the rain, we'll never get the rainbow.
Let me tell you, covenant marriage matters, and being in relationship, being married to the person that God sent for you to marry is important, because we will all go through storms. I want to invite everybody back in, because I oftentimes like to leave the show with things that we've learned. I think that it's important that sometimes our audience, I'm not saying that y'all have difficulty putting the things together. What I'm saying is oftentimes when we do a show like this, we learn so much, we hear so much that oftentimes we can't connect the dots. I'd like to kind of do a round robin where everybody would go around and say something that they've learned through their journey. I think that it helps our audience put their balanced living toolkit together so that when they are facing a storm, or when they're a part of a village that's asked to step in to someone's storm, that they know exactly what they need to do. So I'm going to start with the Nolans. You can do it together or you could do it separately. What have you learned?
I guess for me, the biggest takeaway was to not be afraid to ask for help. It's okay to struggle through, but when you're struggling through by yourself, it takes a large toll on your mental capacities, right? Because you get the stress. You're worried about the kids, you're worried about the house, you're worrying about any and everything that can go wrong, because you want all the positive energies to flow to that individual who's dealing with that situation. And so that was something I had to live for nearly a year, and it took a large toll on my mental health. And so it's okay to ask for help, but it's also okay to take time for yourself. You do need a few moments here and there to be able to relax, to release, and to just get away from that environment for a little bit.
Katrina?
I'll just quickly add that it's important to surround yourself with those who love you and even surround yourself with the other couples, right? You need some shoulders to lean on. And sometimes the shoulders that we have, the weight is heavy, and you sometimes have to, rely on, your parents or other couples to help get you through. And in our case, both of our parents have been married for 50, 40 plus years. And so, we had that example of how to get through those valleys and to the mountaintop. And so we leaned on them quite a lot during that period.
Absolutely. Dr. Hampton.
Yeah, I think I want to leave people with the thought that, cancer cells, they're bad cells, but you can have great outcomes. And I think we've heard some great and inspiring stories of how these bad cells have been removed, eliminated, and destroyed. And these women and men along with them have had great outcomes. So I think we need to really change the discussion in our community, especially the Black community, and realize things have changed. This is not your grandmother's cancer. Let's look at what the options are today. Hear from your providers. Surround yourself with people who love you, who are going to support you, and move forward through this. Don't let it stop you. Move through it.
Dr. Tierney.
So one thing that I learned in listening to our amazing families today is that there are different types of cancer, different types of breast cancer, that I didn't know. And so what that made me think of is the fact that if you are part of being invited into being a part of someone's team that is facing this diagnosis, make sure that you are taking the time to be compassionate, that you are listening to the person. Just because you might have known someone that had breast cancer, or you yourself had breast cancer, it might be a different type of cancer or breast cancer. The family dynamic may be completely different from yours. So make sure that we're not just giving unsolicited advice or different things that we may be meaning well, but might be hurtful. So make sure that we are taking the time to listen to the people that are inviting us to be a part of their support system.
Absolutely. Wally and Shandia.
I'll go first, you can finish it. So what I learned is there's different journeys. Everyone has their own journey, but support is key. Just being there and supporting either your mate or whoever it is, just that support is key in pushing through.
Shandia.
For me, two things. Don't take God for granted. Number two, have a meaningful relationship with your medical team.
I love that. Pastor JT.
Well, one of the things that I learned, and I'll pull it from both of our amazing couples, they weathered a storm, but now they're coming out as meteorologists. They're navigating other people through their storms. And I would suggest to and encourage anyone that's watching this, while you may not have gone through cancer, you've survived something. Open up. Share your story because it's somebody that may be going through the very same thing that you're going through, and your words of encouragement or them just seeing the face of a survivor may give them the push that they need to keep on going.
Absolutely. Thank all of you for sharing your stories. When we're back after the break, I'll give my reflection.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland. Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, We're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can tell, there are tips and tools that are out there for the situations that you are facing. In October, we talk a lot about breast cancer, breast awareness, breast health, getting out and doing walks and making ourselves available to people who are in need. But once this month is over, there are going to be people who have gotten a diagnosis, and it will continue to go on and on and on and on. But with that, we know that we have a hope and a help. It behooves each of us to discover where our strength comes from and to rest and rely not only on that, but to lean into other people who have been on the journey that we are about to face. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Allow yourself and give yourself grace to feel open and vulnerable and transparent so that you can receive the care and support that you deserve. We're all in this together, and I'm grateful that we do have each other. Thank you all for watching today. Bye now.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.